is within the Gwich'in settlement area, adjacent to the Inuvik settlement area, home to the Gwich'in, the Inuvik, Métis, other Indigenous people from throughout Canada, and other people, non-Indigenous people that were born here, moved here from throughout Canada and throughout the world. And all of that makes Inuvik a great place to live. So with that, we will begin our committee of the whole meeting. Item number 2, the adoption of the agenda. Any changes, corrections needed on the agenda? Seeing none, declaration of a conflict of interest with any or pecuniary interest of any of the agenda items. Seeing none. Item number 4, delegation presentations and petitions. We will have an RCMP report on Wednesday, but this evening, our main presentation is from the Department of National Defense, and we have Rob, Chris, and Pat who are going to tag team this presentation. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the Town of Inuvik Committee of the Whole meeting, and we're very much looking forward to your presentation. And just press the red button when you want to talk.
Thank you so much, Mayor and the Town Council. It's great to be here and to present our project to you. I'm Rob Napick. I'm the project director for the NORAD Northern Basing Infrastructure Forward Operating Location in Inuvik. I'll turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
So I'm Colonel Pat Dubé. I'm with the Royal Canadian Air Force and working on this project with the Air Force.
And I'm Chris Middleton. I'm the acting project manager for the forward operating location in Inuvik, working for Department of National Defense.
Great. Thanks and welcome, gentlemen, and we look forward to your presentation.
Okay, with that, here's our agenda. I'll hand it off to Colonel Dubé to points 1 and 2.
Thanks, Rob. So the NORAD, American Aerospace Defense Command, like NORAD, it's a binational command, Canada-US, that was created in 1957. And it's an important headquarters for that oversee the defense of North America. It's still very important today as it was back in 1957. There was a number of discussion over the last decade about modernizing NORAD. And then Canada decided in 2022 to announce the modernization of NORAD. So it includes a number of things, but in particular, one of the biggest item is infrastructure, infrastructure in the north for the 4 NORAD locations that we have in the north. So that's Inuvik, which is the priority number 1, the strategic location, Yellowknife, Cadwit, and Goose Bay. So these are the 4 locations that were included in that modernization for infrastructure. So why do we need to do this? So like I said, Inuvik is a priority site from a strategic location. It was selected back in the 80s when we first built the FOL here, the forward operating location that you're familiar at the airport. And it's still very important today. But with the return of the great power competition with Russia and China, the climate change, it's more important than ever that we keep these locations able to sustain CAF operation. So Canada make the Arctic a focal point on the last Canadian defense strategy. And ultimately, what we're trying to achieve is the safeguarding Canadian sovereignty, protecting Canadian and Canada. From a CAF perspective, from a military perspective, this is done through detecting threat, to deterring attacks and defend if required. So with the CAF modernization, you can see in the news, like the investment to grow the CAF to get new capabilities that really provide the critical capabilities to defend Canada. But without the installation in the north, in the Arctic, to enable the Canadian forces to sustain forces, to have a enhanced presence for reach and mobility across the Arctic, then we cannot employ this capability to the max efficiencies. So it's very important that we invest in the FOL, And if you're probably familiar with the installation here, like the 6 bay hangar, the small garage, the accommodation building, and there's a bit of apron. It's a very modest installation for the need of the Canadian Force, especially with the new capabilities that we start to have or will have in the near future. So we really need to expand our capacity at these locations to sustain a much larger force, like be able to bring air-to-air refueling, storing ammo and all. So we need to do all those investment to support an enhanced presence and be able to project them in further north in the Arctic and sustain that military presence. So it's important for us to complete that to sustain the capital. So I'll pass it along to my colleague Rob to talk about what we're planning to do to achieve this.
Thanks, Pat. So starting off with a map there, I think most people know exactly what we're focused in on. But I want to bring your attention to the top right diagram, and there's 3 bodies of water. So the middle body of water is about the eastern edge of our proposed expansion, and then the
red button.
that one?
Yeah.
Oh, it does work. So over here is about the eastern edge of our the lease that we're looking for, and then the western edge runs along the current FOL boundary. So we're expanding our footprint from about 15 hectares to about 225 hectares. And we have another slide that will demonstrate that more appropriately. So what is NORAD Northern Basing Infrastructure? So we're delivering the infrastructure for multiple capabilities within the Royal Canadian Air Force. So you can think the Royal Canadian Air Force is just about replacing every single aircraft in its fleet. And they all need new, bigger, better hangars and the like. So we'll go through some of them here that are key. So the Defense of Canada fighter infrastructure, that is related to providing the quick reaction alert for the new F-35 fighter jet. And you may have heard over the last 2 weeks, the CF-18 Hornets, because the FOL was active as they were exercising here. So they need a new QRA because the existing ones the existing QRA is built for basically an analog, and the F-35 is a big digital machine, so it needs lots of digital interfaces and the like. The next capability that you'll see is the strategic tanker transport capability. That is based on an Airbus A330 airframe. It's a commercial airliner fitted out to be a military aircraft. It's called the CC-330 Husky, and that has the ability, as its title says, to be a tanker. So bring the gas for the fighters, transport to, just like the C-17s, transport goods anywhere in the world. It also has the ability to be an air ambulance, transport stretchers, and the last is it can be used in its airline mode and transport about approximately 260 soldiers anywhere in the world. And then the last capability, not related to the Air Force, but it is related to national defense and our investment in the North, is the Northern Operational Support Hubs, which Inuvik is a hub. So we are delivering their infrastructure. So they will tell us exactly what they need, and we are the general contractor, so to speak, and we will build that infrastructure for the operational support hubs. So they're all capabilities. We're just building the infrastructure for those capabilities. And there are several other capabilities in there that, are for different aircraft, but these are the main ones for Inuvik. So just to help you, if you're not familiar with the types of aircraft, we'll go through. So, oops. Okay, so starting with the far left, the fighters. So the top one is the F-18 Hornet, and the one below is the F-35 Lightning. The next column under the tankers, the top one is rendering of the CC-330 Husky, and the one below is again another Airbus airliner, but it's the CC-150 Polaris that's going out of service. In the middle under the transport, you see the top one is the C-17. And the middle one is the C-130J Hercules, and then the bottom one in yellow, which will soon be painted gray, is the Twin Otter. One probably not familiar with is the Maritime Patrol Aircraft. So the top one is based on a P-3 Orion called the CP-140 Aurora. Its replacement is a 737 based aircraft called the CP-8 Poseidon. Similar to the Canadian North jets that come in, but just a modern version of it. We have search and rescue aircraft that may be required up here. So the top one is a Cormorant. And then the bottom one is a CEC-295 Kingfisher that replaces the Hercules model that was phased out. And then on the far right, the two helicopters that you probably have seen through Nunooks are the top one was the Chinook and the bottom one is the Griffin utility helicopter. So what is it exactly is NNBI delivering? So you see there's three boxes there on the left-hand side, the project elements. So we need aircraft infrastructure. It's cold more than it's warm here. So we're designing and building multi-platform hangars. Why we call them multi-platform hangars as opposed to designated for a specific one, such that it'll be a Tetris game. So we'll build a hangar and you can fit any combination of aircraft into it. So it has more than one aircraft that can be parked in it. There'll be operations facility to do the planning and then the execution and the monitoring of the operations of the aircraft. And then, of course, the most important is to have hangars for the fighters to be the quick reaction alert aircraft to go and intercept whatever they need to intercept. And to support that, we're going to need additional horizontal infrastructure around the airfield, starting with the obvious one is the upgrade to the runway. But we'll need additional aprons and taxiways. The aircraft are all larger and need a lot more space than what's existing. And coupled with that, the lighting will need to be upgraded as well. We'll need a lot more power and utilities because they're just truck in, truck out right now. And we're going to need about 10 megawatts of power. Sewer and water is yet to be determined. The town has given us a feasibility study, which we will fund under a separate program. IMIT is a fancy way to say computers and digitization. It's information management and information technology. And that is all communications, computers. So there'll be antennas, satellites, fiber optics connection to the Mackenzie Valley Fiber link, computer screens, and all the stuff that modern digital aircraft need to function. And of course, the last one is the land lease going from it's not a new lease, it's the existing lease that's just going to be modified to expand to cover the additional footprint we require. And then to support all of that, we need all the logistics backbone, dining accommodations, morale and welfare. Because these are military aircraft, they will have weapons on board, so we need a place to store those weapons and ammunition storage. They do use lots of fuel. So there'll be some form of fuel facilities, there'll be warehousing, there'll be mobile support equipment, which is to help keep the runways open and clear of snow and ice, as well as specific ground support equipment for the aircraft. They need tow bars, they need tugs, they need stairs and all that. And they all need to be held into indoors as well. Last you see there, medical facilities, we haven't defined what role of medical facilities, but there will be some form of medical capability for CAP or military personnel, so we don't impact the local hospital. And then at the very bottom is a general timeline. So currently we're between 2024 and 2027. We're in the development period. We are going to a major board in December, which will get us access to significant funding. allow us to do design and construction on some of the elements I just mentioned above. And that will carry on to about 2030, and then from there on, construction is expected to go up to 2040. And then operations and maintenance will kick in because everything will be done and built, and we need to maintain and repair. And who knows how long that's going to go on. So just to provide some context. So the picture on the left is a C-17 Globemaster in a hangar. You see the gentleman in front, or the person in front of the tug. That's about 6 feet. So they're very large hangars. And the picture on the right is a picture of the C-330 Husky. And just in the back, just off its tail, is a Chinook helicopter for reference. So if you saw the Chinook, I thought it was big. Not really compared to the CC-330 Husky. Warehousing in the top left, just like Amazon, that's with shelving for material goods. There'll be warehousing for making crates and for shipping containers and for storing equipment. Operations room, a close rendering. You see lots of computer screens. That's the modern way to do everything's digital and everything's integrated. And then down at the bottom, everyone has to have food and rest. And this is a rendering of what a typical layout could look like at the FOL. And you can see on the far left-hand side, you see there's an orange box. You can see the access road. And then on the far right, at the edge of the blue box, that's the extent of the expanded footprint that we need. And then the round circles, because these aircraft are carrying munitions, we have safety templates to make sure that people and equipment are outside of those areas. And that's just in case if something happens and the weapons do go off, it reduces the impact of damage. But that's typical, that this is what it could look like. And then this is a picture of just the airport with on the property. We took a same scale cut of the town of Inuvik, and you can look in the center, you can see the cross there, which is Our Lady of Victory, and just to the left of it is the elementary school. So that gives you a rough picture, for those who know the town very well, of how big the footprint we are expanding, and you can just see the red outline of our expanded footprint. And then I'll pass it over to Christopher. We'll talk about the project delivery, the contracting, the RFP.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Okay, so one of the things I would like to make clear is that we are still at the very early stages of this project. We've covered the why and the what will be delivered. My job is to try and figure out the how it is going to be delivered. And there's still a lot of details outstanding for me to be able to do that. So what I can give you is this is the work that we've done so far. What is the next step, and then what do we expect later on? So what we've done so far is make an educated guess based on the concept drawings of what we believe we will need, and we have done some studies, preliminary studies, to try and figure out where things could go and deal with anything that requires like permits and so forth. They're on the slide there. The only one of those studies that has been completed so far is the archaeological assessment. We have shared that with the Gwich'in Tribal Council and their designated Gwich'in organizations. When it's possible to obtain their feedback, we would very much welcome that. In the meantime, we do have the recommendations from that report. So I can share those here, and it's basically if there is a chance find, anything that is found would stop all work. We would bring in experts to assess, report the findings to the Gwich'in Tribal Council, and then assess work prior to any sort of restart. And for any mitigation work that might be required, we would be looking for local representatives to participate in that field work. The next study listed, the threat risk assessment. I'm simply mentioning that because it exists. That will not be shared with the public. That is a classified document for defense only. And the other ones, the environmental site assessments and so forth down to the geotechnical study, those are still ongoing. The environmental site assessment, we're expecting that in June, along with the species at risk study. And the topographic study and the geotechnical studies, we're expecting those to be complete by the end of August. When we have those studies, they can be shared with the public, and it is our intent to do so. Further, we're working on a concept plan development. So the concept drawings you saw earlier, we need some dimensions applied to those to try and figure out where exactly things could actually go, and then look at various options. So what you saw there is not what will be built, just to give you an idea of what could be built. Again, we're still in the early stages. We will also be looking to do a traditional land use study. So we will be looking for input from the community, from Indigenous rights holders, to tell us more about the lands, because we realize and accept that there's a lot we do not know, and we don't know what we don't know. So we would like to be informed as best we can to make sure that we treat the land appropriately. And then for future studies, as I will get to on the next slide, anything that we have missed or anything that needs to be supplemented will be the responsibility of the successful bidder that wins the modified design build contract for the FOL in Inuvik. So the project that we're launching, we're using a process called a modified design build, where a prime contractor is going to be brought in and basically help us with the development, the design, and then transition into construction to try and realize some efficiencies and move this project as quickly as possible. We did present the timeline earlier, but it has been made very clear to us from the Government of Canada that this is to be done with some urgency. The threat doesn't wait for us to get our act together, so we're trying to move as quickly as possible. So why I mentioned that is because normally a modified design build does not engage a contractor in phase one. Normally, all of that work is done internal to the federal government, and we have a very clear picture of what we want, where we want it, when we want it. Here, please, contractor, go deliver our product. We don't have the capacity to do that right now, and we're not going to have it soon enough to do all those things. So we're bringing in a contractor earlier to assist with phase one development, which normally we would do internally. First component of that would be an Indigenous participation plan, and whoever wins the contract will have to show us that they have a plan to meet the Government of Canada's targets for basically 5% of the project spending going to Indigenous businesses and individuals. So they'll be directed to come up with a plan and show us that, and that will factor into who is going to actually be awarded the contract. I do not know what that is going to look like yet. It is still being shaped. What I would like to see happen would be to collaborate as much as possible with the Gwich'in Tribal Council and the designated Gwich'in organizations to make sure that it does what it needs to do and meets all of our treaty obligations very clearly, but also respects Government of Canada contracting laws. So we're still looking at how to actually do that and what language is required. The intent is to maximize the employment of local capacity before going external to Inuvik. Concurrent with that will be the market analysis. This is going to be quite important. There is going to be a large overlap between the market analysis and the Indigenous participation plan, because this is where we're going to ask the contractor to tell us, okay, what is the capacity in Inuvik to do some of the work that we know that we need to get done. Further to that, if sufficient capacity doesn't exist, how could more be generated? And they will have to present us a plan for that. So for any business owners out there, If you are not registered either as an Indigenous business with Indigenous Services Canada's Indigenous Business Directory or as a non-Indigenous business, and I'm afraid I don't know who you would need to register with to make sure the federal government is aware of your existence. Please get out and do that. Make sure we know that you exist, and then pay attention to the business-to-business opportunity that is going to be coming up in June, which I mentioned on this subsequent slide. And come and talk to our contracting agency, Defense Construction Canada. The design builder that wins the contract will be directed to engage the local community to get as much detail on the market analysis as possible. But I will also be asking them to look at not just local, but regional, national, and even international factors, because there are things going on elsewhere in the world that will influence how we are going to be able to execute this project and how much, because costs sometimes, often, respond to things going on in international markets. And if you've been looking at gas prices, you probably realize that already. Again, concurrent with that will be the regulatory and permit review. We'll be asking them to just make sure that we plan ahead and engage any permitting agencies at the right time, in the right way, on the right topic, and that it all aligns with the rest of the project plan. As they're putting that together, it will be in alignment with concept designs. They will take what we have already and then turn the concept designs into something we can actually build into a plan that will include priority elements, as well as any early works for the higher priority project elements that we have identified already. So what this will be is looking at the entire FOL site and figuring out what the entire puzzle is going to look like before we figure out what the individual pieces are going to look like. We need to know how it's all going to fit together. So in order to do that, they will need to provide us a site analysis, various studies, as well as how they plan to handle the logistics, because we don't understand all the details, but we have heard that it is difficult, or more difficult to build things in the north than it is in the south. So we are going to make sure that they have thought about this before they engage. And of course, we need to know how much they think it's going to cost. And then we'll adjust on the fly, depending on what they come back with. Once all of that is complete, we will be then asking them to develop the project elements into something that can actually be built. So they will then put one element forth at a time, design them, and then implement, fitting it into the overall preliminary concept that we will have approved by that time. So that's what we're about to do. And what we have planned for the rest of this year is to continue working on that, but also to do our best to make sure that we keep the lines of communication open with everybody that has a stake in this project. So certainly the Inuvik community, Indigenous rights holders, and other interested Indigenous parties. Because again, we don't know what we don't know, and the best way to rectify that is to keep the engagements steady and make sure there's a decent information flow in both directions. So if the community feels that we have missed something, we would like to know. We would value that input very much. And then as we figure out more things about this project, we will share those as that comes up. The advanced procurement notice has already gone out for the FOL here. It went out in January, and the request for proposal should follow this summer. It's being drafted right now, but we have to make sure we have the language right, so it's going to take a little bit of time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be setting up a business-to-business opportunity with Defense Construction Canada, which is National Defence's contracting authority. So for any interested businesses, it will be taking place at the same time as the Arctic Development Expo. So I encourage you to reach out and look into that. One of the things that will need to be considered is, because this is a national defense project, a great deal of it will be considered classified, but there will be lots of opportunities for non-classified work. regardless, if you are going to be working with us, you will need to have a security clearance, or your company will need a security clearance. Once we have a design builder on board, any business that wishes to subcontract with them should be contacting the prime contractor and seeking a security clearance through them. We are aware that obtaining a security clearance takes time. Right now, that time is unfortunately measured in months. So getting in early and leaning forward on this would be important, not just to, I'd say, your businesses, but also to us. It's slow for us as well. Yeah. And then capital assistance program, what background?
So within D&D, we recognize that there are some aspects to our infrastructure that we don't own, but we need upgraded. The obvious one is the runway. 6,000 feet is good enough for the town, but defense said, no, we need 9. So we're paying the government of Northwest Territories to lengthen that runway. So that's the obvious one. But there's other related elements that we need at the FOL. We're going to need a lot more power. So we have a proposal coming from the NT Power Corp, and we will pay to upgrade whatever needs to be upgraded in order so that we can get our power. The same as we have a feasibility study from the town to do the water and wastewater, because we know it's only truck in, truck out. And once we get into full operations, that's going to be woefully insufficient. And also too, we recognize that we're at a it's not a sole D&D use area. There's also the airport beside us. So there'll be collateral effects that will upgrade and help out the airport to make it more attractive for businesses if we can figure out the power, the water, the sewer, and the natural gas. It makes it that much more enticing for other businesses to come to the airport there. As well as there's plans to do some projects up at the ISSF. And if we can increase capacity at the airport, it's just a short jaunt to provide them the necessary utilities on there. So this is a program that we use quite frequently, and will be of use or will be used by the forward operation here in Inuvik. And I'll just touch quickly on the Northern Operational Support Hub. It's not my project, but they gave us a slide, so I'll give people a minute to read the slide to give a better indication of what the Northern Operational Support Hubs are. And we know right now Inuvik is one of the hubs, and what we are doing is we're waiting for them to tell us what they want built, and then our project will build their required infrastructure. So it's a rare chance, I would say, in defense where we're collaborating together with other projects. Under one banner. And then with that is all we have. Subject to any questions? It's our brief. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rob, Chris, Pat. Questions from council? Councilor Lemieux.
Yeah, do you guys plan on having people permanently residing within the community itself, or is everybody gonna be over at the airport?
So at this time, there's no change on our plans. So right now we have a crew of 7 that lives on the PAB. They're just rotating through. That plan is not changing. So at this time, there's no plan of permanent presence. I wouldn't say that couldn't change in the future. Like there's there's GTFN and Yellowknife. They're a plan to increase their presence in the AirTech from that organization. So I cannot say the longer term future, but for this project, there's no plan to have permanent presence in the town. We'll maintain that people who are coming through staying in the PAB just to keep the place running while there's no operation.
Okay.
Councilor Fair.
Just want to start by saying thanks for your presentation. I think it's also really wonderful that you're doing the survey online and that you have the proposed town hall for tomorrow. It's a great way to get out there and to hear from a larger volume of people around how this may impact the community. You might get a great, a more wholesome response than what you may get here this evening. Looking at the images that you provided, to better understand the scoping, is this going to look something as large as the Trenton base, something much smaller like the Halifax base, something in between? It's just so hard to tell from the images that you've provided.
So yeah, it won't be as big as Trenton, but it is, not sure which one can compare the best, but it is a much larger footprint what we have now. I would compare, it will be a small wing. I'm not sure we have anything comparable though, maybe like Winnipeg, maybe it can be the comparable, and then we'll have bigger hangars though in Inuvik that what we have in Winnipeg, for example, because we don't have like up to the C-130. Here we'll have like something bigger than like the 330 is the largest planes. We don't have a hangar in the CAF right now that can fit the A330. They're building them in Trenton, and the intent is to end up looking to build them in Edmonton, and then we're building one in Inuvik. So it's going to be the largest buildings we carry out.
So that's related to sort of the sizing, so similar to Winnipeg. And then in terms of the layout, would there be a similar base that you could compare the layout to that you're potentially proposing?
No, I think this is going to be pretty unique. I think this is going to be, I think the layout will be different. Because we have the quick correction area and then the large hangar, all the same location. So it's going to be, I think, unique to the requirement of the FOL.
Thanks.
But thank you very much though for hosting this and for tomorrow. So really the town asked and the town organized. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
Further questions from council? Scott, the question I had there, I think it was, somebody mentioned 5% of the potential target for Indigenous participation. Is there a potential target for Northern participation?
So, officially, no. So there's a government target for 5% of project spending to go towards Indigenous. But for everybody else, it is a competitive process.
So does that mean it's not competitive for Indigenous process?
So as I said, we're in early stages of this and trying to figure out how the wording needs to be. But what we will eventually end up with is something that makes sure that we meet our treaty obligations, but still follows government contract rules. So where there has to be competition, there will still be competition. If we're able to do anything other than that, I'm not aware of it yet, but we're still trying to figure that out.
Okay. Councilor Lemieux.
Yeah, I think it's important that you guys realize that there are a lot of local, like northern and local companies that are of a variety of different backgrounds that are in here. So I think you should kind of put everything together and not exclude those people that are actually living here, right?
Yeah, thank you for raising that point. So we do acknowledge that. So the Indigenous participation plan will be focusing on meeting the Indigenous obligations that we have, but the market assessment, that will be looking at everything. So we'll also include any non-Indigenous businesses and their capacities and their needs, and looking at the whole thing, because our interest is in delivering the project. And to me, it makes sense. If the capacity is here, well, hey, why not use it? 100%. That said, I can't tell the contractor where to put the money because I'd be breaking the law.
Just one thing that's been raised before, certainly the operations, once everything is built, will continue, and that will take care of itself, and there's not that many people. However, during the construction phase, there could be, I think Rob told me at one point, it could be up to 1,000 construction workers during, the peak of construction. And I'm just wondering what's being considered for some of their leisure time, off time, weekends, other than just working at the site.
So that is, that's ahead of where we are. And we probably would not get into that level of detail. What I can tell you is that, the statement of work is going to tell the successful bidder that they have to minimize any adverse impacts on the local community. So, we can't have them come and everybody is expected to shop on the local economy. That's just, we don't think that's going to work. So the successful bidder is gonna have to show us, okay, what is your plan to sustain your workforce without adversely affecting the town? That said, there should be some positive aspects to that. But again, we have to be careful and find a balance. And actually, I think working with the town is probably going to help us figure out what that balance will be.
Yeah, and we're certainly willing to do that. I mean, recreation is a big part of what the town does and with all the different events throughout the year. So we'd certainly be open to working with that and how we can add legacy into the community from the project as opposed to, you know, whatever facilities it is being built at the airport and then, you know, demolished or, you know, taken to the landfill after the construction phase is over. So we'd definitely be interested in working with the project on that or who's ever responsible at that stage. And I mean, we've got great recreation facilities now, pool, skating rink, curling rink. But nothing that could absorb, you know, the potential use of all of the work camps. I mean, the D&D staff now, out at the FOL site come in, use all of those facilities, certainly the gym, they use the gym, the fitness center daily. But we'd be interested in working with D&D to figure out what else would be useful and what else would be useful for the town.
Yeah, thank you very much for that point. Recreation is not something I have looked at yet, so I've made a note, it will be looked at.
It's always better to keep people, whether they're adults or kids, engaged in positive recreation, because we all know people will find the negative recreation, and that's something we do want to avoid.
Okay.
Councilor Merrill.
If you're looking at up to 1,000 people for a construction crew, where are you gonna be housing? And you're looking at work camps and
So we're not that far along and we're not going to be dictating a solution to the design builder. What we will be asking for is a plan from them showing us that they have minimized the adverse effects on the local community. So whether that's building a camp, housing them in military housing temporarily, I don't know. That will be up to them to figure out and present to us.
thank you.
Deputy Mayor Barrow.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's a lot of information to absorb. It's the first kind of more thorough bit of information I've heard on some of the future planning. So I was thinking more on the side of things like the geotechnical analysis. So is that all going to happen like during the environmental site assessment of phase 1, or is that maybe a little later on in like phase 2? Because we've seen from other projects in the area, it can be a very, as you mentioned, challenging environment to build in. And it'd just be kind of interesting to see what kind of problems you may encounter in the area with permafrost, ice lenses, that sort of muskegee environment and subsidence and all the other fun stuff we get to experience all the time. And just in relation to that, as far as the footprint, like you kind of overlaid like the whole town of Inuvik essentially in your boxes of, so you kind of, not to put a whole new community in the area, but I'm assuming you're gonna have just sort of segments of sort of filled in areas. You're not gonna have like one big massive filled in area. It's gonna have,
Yes, so that graphic is the best we could do
Just
at the time to give you a sense of the size. But it's merely the area that we believe we're going to occupy, but most of that area will be empty space. It's just we need the distances for safety and standoff and so forth. Your other question, I'm sorry, could you repeat it? Geotech, right. So right now we've got a geotech study on to get a sense of what the ground conditions would be like. But at this point, we don't know where each building is going to go. So what I expect to have happen is the design builder will give us a general plan. They will do some supplementary studies to get an even better idea of ground conditions where we think things are going to go. And then as each element is developed, they will have a much clearer idea of where exactly boreholes need to go, and they will conduct those studies. So I see it as a tiered approach, getting more and more refined as the elements get more and more refined.
And then just kind of following up on that too, it's not really directly like a town of Inuvik thing, but it is a concern for the town in the sense of the amount of granular resources that are gonna be needed and what's available in the region, and whether you're gonna be tapping into quite a large chunk of the sources that are around. And how that may impact the availability for like sanding the roads in the winter time, for example. So have you guys, I mean, probably not far enough along yet to have any idea of their requirement for the granular resources and whether you're gonna be able to meet the needs within the region without necessarily impacting the access that, say, the municipalities have to those kind of resources for our own needs as well?
Right, so at this point, I absolutely do not have that level of granularity. So what we'll be doing is relying on the market assessment to tell us what's available. But then I go back to the directive we're going to give them that they can't have an adverse effect on the community. So I would see that as being part of that. Okay, yes, the capacity might be there, but if it is needed to sustain the town, then we would have to find some other means. Because we can't stop the town's function just to build a project.
Thank you.
There was earlier discussion on, because of the addition to the FOL site, the need to enhance the firefighting at the site and building facilities and equipment for that. I realize that also may be ahead, but is the idea still to locate all of that at the airport?
So we do have a plan to, we do have some firefighting truck now in existing buildings, so we do have a plan we'll have to increase that capacity. Because of the larger sites, the aircraft and the presence, so. We'll have to still discuss it with the airport authority, like, is that something we build on the FOL? I think these are still options here, that something could be shared. We don't have the answer, so there's a point for further discussion. So maybe we do build something just at the FOL. With just CAF resources, or maybe we can have a discussion to see if there could be some share used with something like this.
Yeah, and we're certainly, I mean, we've got a very active professional fire department, lots of training going on all the time, and long-term dedicated members, and we'd certainly be open to those discussions because, yeah, I mean, the fire crew at the airport could be sitting there a long time, before there's active duty to do. So, yeah, we're certainly open to that in the future, having those discussions.
So I think this would apply to maybe other things like we'll have to discuss, like de-icing, for example, of aircraft. Like we get 330 needs a lot of de-icing, the size of that aircraft, but there's also a need for commercial airlines. So things like de-icing, fuel, so those are things that can we share as between the airport and the CAF, and there's something we can do together. So these things we'll explore.
Okay. Any further questions from council? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much to all three of you for the presentation, the information, and I know we'll be following up on some things, and we certainly look forward to seeing all three of you at the Arctic Development Expo, at the Arctic Security of Shared Responsibility Conference in June, as well as I think a lot of other people from Inuvik and from the rest of Canada will be interested in the presentations that D&D will be making there. So again, thank you very much.
And thank you.
All right. I know, Councilor Lemieux, you have to take off close to 8.
Yeah, I gotta excuse myself, so thank you, thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving forward, item number 5, public question period. Any questions from the public? Seeing none at this time, item number 6, the adoption of the minutes from the April 8th council meeting. Any corrections, errors, omissions needed at that meeting or in those minutes? Seeing none. Item number 7, action items, anything?
So I did get an update from MACA with regard to the status of the community plan. They are now at the point where they are engaging in consultation with the Indigenous governments and designated authorities. So they have reached out to the NUTAT and they are working on a timeline to have that consultation happen.
Okay, thank you. New business bylaws, request for council decision to acquire commissioners' lands. This, I believe, is the 3rd reading on that. And that, those are all of the active items. And so next we have departmental updates. Let's take a 5-minute break. It's a little warm in here. We can grab a water or whatever else we need. And then that'll allow the D&D guys if they want to. Let's take a 5-minute break.